Thank you very much. I feel very honored to speak in this very impressive room, and I'm even more happy and proud that we got this project DiscardLess, because it's been a pretty tough competition. I mean, fishery scientists, we used to be a big family, we all know each other, and that project has really been the one where we had to choose our friends, we were against or for with each other, because I don't know any fishery scientist that was not in one call, so it was really a bit like, who would make it at the end? And it was us. That was great. So that's our project called DiscardLess, which is about this strategy for the gradual elimination of discard in European fisheries. So first of all, why? I mean, why do we have this project? What was it part of Horizon 2020? Well, fisheries, it's a common issue for fisheries, but it's typically fisheries are not always very selective. You catch something that you want to land, but at the same time, you catch a whole lot of other things that you're not very happy with and that you don't know what to do. But in many cases, things are just discard because it's the easiest thing to do and there is no reason for doing anything else. So it's either because the fish are too small or because simply you cannot sell them because nobody wants to. That's what we saw in the previous slide. Nobody wants to buy them. Or simply that sometimes the regulation itself that prevents you to land, you don't have a quota for this. So it's a very generic issue. But the EU has tried to tackle this issue, and the same way that society is moving into this no-waste society, so fisheries is simply going in the same way. So the EU has voted the most ambitious reform ever in fisheries, and has decided to end this discarding story. So it has really been a very big change, a big paradigm shift. We have never seen something like that before in many fisheries. So because of this, discarding has moved from an issue that was mainly something about collecting data or trying to get the knowledge to really turning into a big political issue. Because you have to think that fisheries, it has always worked as, exactly as I said at the beginning, you want to optimize what you can land, and all of a sudden we want to ask the fishermen to minimize what they cannot land. So it's a completely different way to think fisheries, it's a completely different way to drive a business, and that of course requires a lot of adaptation. And then, of course, we cannot expect that things will go smooth. And in the short term, especially in the short term, it requires really a lot of trouble from the industry because it's difficult to avoid discards, and it has a lot of cost because you have to sort more or you have to bring this to land. So it's a lot of issues. So really the whole idea of this project is, well, can science do something? Is there anything we can help, or is that really something only the issue of fishermen, they have to find their own way, or is that anything we can help in one way or another? And talking to discard, I think what I found the most interesting with discard is that basically it is a common field to all of us. I mean, every fishery scientist I know regarding if they are working on genetics or gear technology or ecosystem modeling or any kind of stock assessment, we all have something to say about discard. So that's really, I realized how discard was a kind of a driving forces for science and something we could get together on. So just, for example, to give you some examples, some of the products we would like to do out of this discard project, it has some ecology. What is the role of discards in the ecosystem? Does it make a difference if we discard less? If we bring the discard to land and then remove the protein out of the sea, what is the role? We know that seabirds would be affected, but is there any other component of the ocean that will be affected by discards? We have some socioeconomy. What is the role of changing discard from the fleet? How can they adapt? How much did it cost them to change their fishing practices? We have some gear technology challenges. Can we avoid these discards simply by changing the way we fish in terms of technology, or by the way we fish in terms of where, when, at which speed, and etc. So it's a lot of things we can try to avoid discard. But there will always be this component that we cannot avoid. I don't think, nobody believes that we will be able to avoid everything that we don't want, so there will always be a component of the catch that will still be on board and that cannot be avoided. So that's the second part of the challenge. What can we do with this? Is there any way we can make a better use of this part of the catch that we cannot avoid? So both how we can handle it on board, monitor it, and then use it in the supply chain. So it's simply, I think, we are only at the start of the innovation of what we can do with all these things. It's already plenty of ideas. And a bit in the same way as the project you've seen before, the whole idea is really trying to bring all these strategies together in one of these big boxes where you can really compare and provide this kind of interactive tool. It's built a bit in the same setup. Interactive tool where you can, for every single fishing industry, you can try to say, okay, what kind of strategy would be the most profitable for me or the least problematic to implement, you know? So we want to bring things together and make a comparable frame. And this reflects in the way we have built this project. It works in terms of cluster. We have the modeling cluster, you know, the impact on the ecosystem and the impact on the fleet. We have the avoidance cluster, trying to avoid this catch. We have the use cluster, how to make the best use of these things. And then we have the cluster of bringing the things together. But what's common to all this is really that at each time we want a project that is useful. We want a project that people can make something out of. So we want that at each step, everything we do, we have to ask ourselves, well, did we work with the people that are affected by the discards? Are we bringing something to them? Are we listening to them? Are we promoting technological innovation? Are we helping innovation in Europe? Are we promoting solutions that are cost-effective, that can be monitored, that can be controlled, and how good are we at communicating these things? So this transversal theme, that will be the red thread that we will follow throughout these projects. So now who? Well, my partner can forgive me, I don't have a slide with all their logo, but they know that they're not forgotten. We're a pretty big project. We have 31 partners altogether, some big, some small, but it's a good mix between universities, research, and SMEs, industries, and organizations. So we have tried to give science, but at each time, at each work package, we want to have some people from the industry that will help us. And the thing is that because discard is so rooted in national policy and local issues, then we want to act both as this kind of big umbrella organization where we gather what people have done nationally and also develop our own approach to these things. So I think that will be very interesting. The project will run on 4 years, which is the time that the policy has to be implemented. The discard policy in Europe is starting now. It has to be finished by 2019. So our project will simply follow that throughout, and we will always be there when the things will be discussed. We have a kickoff next week in Bilbao. If ever some of you are here next week, it will be a very big event because we are doing that together with a number of a commercial fair for the fishing industry. So many people and a lot of interactions. So now just for why we have the Atlantic collaboration in DiscardLess. Well, the issues are the same. Discard is simply something which is universal in many fisheries. In some area, people are better in making use of discard because everything can be used. In other, it's less. But the issue is the same, and the policy is the same. Society, especially in the Western countries, society goes into that direction of less waste and better use of resources. So really, because the issues are the same, because the problems are the same, we have a lot to gain by mutualizing our experience and sharing the knowledge. We want to standardize our approach, our methodology. And also we want to help each other so that we simply have a quicker return, because instead of everybody has to develop the thinking from start, we can be quicker into providing what the other people have done to the people in the different countries. The second is also to increase the diversity of case studies, and that's also what Mr. Carabonnel will present just after. I mean, it's also interesting to simply look a bit further what we know in Europe, because there are other ways to do in the other side of the Atlantic. And also, we want to simply be a bit better by watching our own policy, because we are very focused. Okay, I know very much the common fishery policy. I know a bit less what happened in USA and Canada, and we tend to be very critical on our own policy. It's always, the grass is always greener on the other side, and I think that will also help us to see, okay, what are we good at and what are we less good at by simply putting things together. So I think that will be a very good learning. And finally, we want to, I think this project is just the start. I'm sure there will be plenty of, we are already starting to say, okay, to see how we can make this more. So in terms of the Atlantic collaboration, we have one Canadian partner, which is Memorial University. So that will just take after me. But we have also 3 American scientists and advisors in our scientific advisory board. Oops, it disappeared. Well, I was finished anyway. So yeah, that's so it was just my conclusion. Is that especially with NOAA, we were already thinking how to develop something equivalent to DiscardLess, but on the US side. So I'm sure it's just the beginning, and we'll have plenty of opportunities for later. Oops. So now, if you want to take over for the Canadian part,